Economics obsesses about production as the engine of prosperity. But maybe this is the real problem, the compulsion to endlessly expand material production at the cheapest prices on a finite planet. Let's look briefly at the basics of capitalist production, and then see what happens when people can instead co-make and co-use what they need. Capitalist production requires a vast apparatus of interlocking businesses, markets, and government support. It's a complicated system of expensive overhead that is constantly struggling to orchestrate labor, commodity extraction, product design, manufacturing, legal compliance, and distribution. Then consumers have to be relentlessly barraged with advertising and marketing to prod them to buy in order to supercharge sales, profits, and growth. It's a crazy cycle that's destroying the earth. Things are different in the commons. There's no need to constantly consume, no imperative to grow, because the focus is on real needs, not endless or contrived wants. And because sellers and buyers, producers and consumers are the same people, there's no built-in clash between production and consumption. It's a single organic process, provisioning. In such a system, authoritarian systems of control aren't only inappropriate, they won't work. There's no need to create mindless jobs and rely on offensive marketing or various business scams. When you have to consume what you produce, or eat your own dog food, as they say in the tech world, you don't have any incentive to produce shoddy work or cheat others. You have big incentives to produce quality work, think long-term, and build a happy, stable community. By escaping the harsh profit demands of investors, by avoiding the pressures of debt and outside investment and constant growth, the commons can host a more humane, ethical, eco-friendly system of provisioning. In my book, Free, Fair, and Alive, written with Silke Helfrich, we identified some of the patterns of commoning that are driving provisioning. The most basic pattern is make and use together, which of course takes different forms if you're farming or creating software code or providing childcare. But the core idea of make and use together is that you're producing things collaboratively to address shared needs. You're not creating products or goods in the classic economic sense. You're creating decommodified forms of care wealth that people love and respect. Commoners have feelings for the things they make and take care of. They love and cherish their forest and fisheries, their farmland and water. They're proud of their jointly created code and urban spaces, their time-banking networks and artistic commons. People develop traditions, cultures, and identities around their commons. Those identities manifest in the care and craftsmanship and pride they bring to stewarding the common. This is because commoners aren't simply producing things for sale and consumption. They're producing care wealth to share, to meet their needs. Its value isn't defined by money or price. It isn't defined or controlled as private property. How can this possibly work, you might ask? Well, one might say that this has been the default way that humans have managed and governed things for millennia. But given our immersion in global industrial capitalism, it takes more work and self-awareness to develop a commons these days. One key strategy is to sidestep bankers and investors as much as possible. Commoners prefer to share the risks of provisioning themselves by pooling money. That's a key pattern of commoning. By pooling money, which is to say peer financing and shared equity, commoners avoid capitalist control and domination. They control things themselves, and they avoid the expensive overhead, debt, and predatory norms of capitalist markets. That's how community-supported agriculture manages to produce higher quality food on a local scale. It's how platform cooperatives for ride-hailing services and overnight lodging work to serve their members instead of paying dividends to venture capitalists. It's how cosmo-local production projects are able to build houses, motor vehicles, furniture, and even body prosthetics with non-proprietary, shareable, less expensive design. Commons have all sorts of ways of allocating the things and care services they generate. One is the strategy of pool, cap, and divide up. You might apply this to the harvest from a farm or fish caught in the ocean. Another strategy is pool, cap, and mutualize, which means that the benefits aren't necessarily distributed in perfectly equal shares, but according to agreed-upon formulas, much as Social Security systems do. The point in each case is to break with the logic of market price and competition, and to express a social reciprocity and solidarity in how one makes and distributes things. To ensure that some elite team doesn't dominate this process, it's important for commoners to rely on distributed structures. That's another pattern. Power can't be concentrated at the top. A central team can't be allowed to dictate rules without the consent of commoners. Everyone has to have a voice and consent in decision-making. This is an essential way to nourish trust, solidarity, and fair outcomes. I need to stress, using these patterns of commoning is not some magic pixie dust. It doesn't automatically solve the many difficult challenges of social organization and provisioning. What it does achieve is the opening up of imaginative new possibilities. It creates social and economic spaces for meeting needs in better ways. Competitive market pressures, bank loans, and outside investments don't need to dictate how work is done and how jobs are structured. A person's worth doesn't have to be defined by labor markets. Their jobs don't have to be mindless, demeaning, and alienating. A commons can mitigate the productivity obsessions of capital. It can nurture the care that people want to bring to their lives. Capitalism has always treated caring, child-rearing, and education as activities largely external to the market economy, as something that individuals have to do for themselves on their own time at their own expense. Capitalism tries to buy people's talents and loyalty, but a commons takes a different approach. It strives to feed a person's inner commitments and aspirations and talents, and draw on their natural inclinations to cooperate and belong, and in that way accommodate people's life needs. A commons doesn't treat people as human resources or some unit of productivity or a replaceable cog in a vast market machine. As commoners, people therefore have more freedom to innovate in ethical, responsible ways. That's why farmland commons can grow healthier organic food in regenerative ways than big agriculture can. It's why hackers at Fab Labs are creating shareable designs for electronics and furniture. That's how mutual aid networks are able to provide rapid care and comfort in emergencies. In a commons, there's no incentive to design shoddy products that fall apart through planned obsolescence. There's no need to pander to consumer fantasies through manipulative advertising. It's not necessary to seek higher sales volumes at the highest prices, and so there aren't the pressures to abuse the environment and displace costs onto future generations. Provisioning through a commons changes the story. There's no need to create contrived desires and engineered dependencies to make money. In a commons, it's about addressing real needs by decommodifying wealth. It's about building a sense of security and belonging and a culture of sufficiency.